Cloud. All right, welcome back, everyone. It's another episode of AI That Works. I'm Vaibhav, one of the creators of BAML, and with me I have
My
Mr.
name's
Dexter.
Dex, and I am the founder of Human Layer
Yeah.
and
And
creator of
today I
12
think
factor agents, although Vaibhav doesn't get enough credit for that one. So
no,
if
no,
you're
it's
reading
fine. It
12
doesn't really
factor
matter.
agents and you want to give me a shout out, give Vaibhav a shout out too.
No, that's all good. But I think today what we want to talk about is really around the topic that comes up a lot, which is we have new models come out all the time. How do we actually go about measuring which model we should use? Should we swap the model? Should we not swap the model? We're going to write some code. We're going to show you how to do it. And then, but I think most importantly, we're gonna start off with just a general discussion around this really quickly. And I'm going to try and get like people to share their thoughts along the way. So the first thing I want to talk about is like for everyone that does build LM applications, you can do it by a show of hands, type in chat, whatever you think is best. And Dex, you as well. Like I want to ask, how many of you did when you see a new model come out, immediately go back and try and update your prompts to use that model right away? Dex, you do?
Yeah, I've done this a couple times. Even back like a year and a half ago when it was like GPT-4 switched to GPT-4o. That was the
Yeah.
biggest one. That was, and like I know 4o was a little bit dumber, but it was so much faster and cheaper that I was just like, okay, this is faster, we're good. Like I vibed it in 30 seconds. I was like, yep, we're gonna use this one from now on.
I see. And like what drives that for you? Like what is it just cost for you that makes that decision? Like
It was
what
speed. It was experience. We had a thing in the UI. Basically, we built this app before we were working on Human Layer. We're doing this thing with like analyze SQL queries from your SQL audit log and like pump them through GPT and then like summarize the query and then like segment them by person or by table to try to give descriptions of like what is this table generally used for or what is this person generally query things about. And so that summary was like take the last 10 queries, summarize those, and then do that a bunch of times in parallel, and then summarize the summaries. And so like we were running a ton of prompts. And so like I think 4.0 is like 4 times faster or twice as fast as
yeah.
GPT-4. So it was a huge like UX boost because we were doing it live on the fly. We hadn't started like pre-filling it or warming the cache for it or whatever. So it was like the speed was the only thing. With like user experience, it was like this is faster, even if it's slightly dumber, I want it.
Yeah, I think that's normally what I've seen as well. It's like if there's a huge step function improvement, most people are just immediately trying to swap over at least some of their prompts to the latest model or at least see how they can do. But at least my empirical evidence has been the minute like a new model comes out, the first thing that I often see people do is like wait for other people's response to it. And then
Yeah,
they're
let
like,
someone else vibe check for you, right?
yeah, that's what I feel like I'm seeing a lot more of is like people are like mostly happy with the model today, or I would say like it's like the known enemy. And a new model is like the unknown enemy. It could be good, it could be a friend, but you really don't know. And like the effort of actually seeing if the model will work or not work is not worth it, especially if a system isn't broken.
Well, and what you see also is people come up with their own like benchmark systems, like their
Yeah.
own how do we say it? Like their own just personal benchmark of like when a new model comes out, I have a bunch of prompts that are secret that is like my private benchmark set that gives me a feel for how it performs. And I can tweak and like see how that works. If you were an AI engineer, this is a really good talk. Simon Wilson talks about his benchmark for seeing how good a model is now like his vibe is generating an SVG of a pelican on a bicycle and like literally generating the SVGs from scratch. And so like he has it for Nova and Llama 3.3 and DeepSeek and kind of like how all of these different models draw
That's
things.
so
So
funny.
like this is not a technical benchmark, this is a vibe benchmark, but new model comes out, he's running this test on it basically. I'll share
So
a
I
link to
think,
that as well.
yeah, I think that's kind of what I see too.
And we
Sorry.
got some comments in the chat as well.
I think Sylvia said a point about like this is the best way to do it is just like prompt it. Honestly, I think I feel the same way. Like for example, we have our AI content pipeline that we use to summarize these videos, send out emails, send out a little blurb. We'll probably be adding pretty soon to it. We'll be adding this ability to what I would say is like add hopefully add like blog posts written about it as well from the same context. And our
Oh,
bar for,
I wrote a prompt for tweets based on it. It
yeah,
works pretty
exactly.
well.
Yeah, and it's surprising. It takes a while, but like now that it's working, would you change to a newer model?
The original owner was kind of a idiot.
Oh yeah, I'm not a host. I can't mute people for you,
I don't know
Vibe.
why I don't know why you're not auto host. Let me make you an auto host. I'll make host. There we go. Yeah, what would you do? Like now that the tweet pipeline is working and the other systems are working, would you go ahead and like update the model?
So here's another thing that's happened recently is like, and this is gonna be kind of like oh, sorry, I lost my power for a sec. Um we built this whole pipeline and then I was like prototyping something in Claude. And just seeing like we built this pipeline to do the tweets and the human in a loop and all this stuff. And I jumped in, I was just like, can Claude build this in like a headless, like the more agentic way?
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing is like not just vibing different models, but different like architectures. Let me see if I can switch back to the other. There we go.
Yeah.
Um, but this tweet, this LinkedIn post here was literally entirely written by Claude. I didn't edit it at all. I added the credit for the slide because Claude can't do links. But like
Yeah.
this is from our last episode. I just said I'll show you the prompt that we use. Um, it's called social. So it's like find all the whiteboard images in the episode's read. So if you go on our website, just getting a tiny bit off topic, but this is exactly kind of how I'm vibing through this stuff. So here's the episode, and it's basically like for each of these pictures that we uploaded, like download it, look at it, and write a post about it. So like users will get to download the image, create a Twitter post that captures the key insight, keep it short. Each post should teach one specific lesson from the whiteboard, and this is the file that got created. So it basically for each one, um, yeah. So here's the one that was posted on LinkedIn. Um, so this is kind of like it's not just vibing like one prompt in and the model does something, but it's like how smart is the model at like multi-turn tool calling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So all that is to say is like not only should you say here's the text in, here's the prompt, what comes out, this like tokens in, tokens out context engineering view, but also like can you zoom out like is the new model smart enough in the right harness, some kind of like just like simple tool calling loop like Claude Code to solve a bigger problem to like one shot a LinkedIn post or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the right mentality. And I think the really like my approach to new models is honestly twofold whenever I think about them. The way that I approach new models is one, every time a new model comes out, I try and like flip the switch in my brain that helps me like think about what a model can do and cannot do and just like turn it off. It's really important I try and remove that bias because otherwise I won't ask the model to do enough. And I just push the model to its limit. I try and use a shorter prompt that is maybe a little bit more ambiguous sometimes even, and just see what the model does. And then I run like 20 or 30 of them, and then I get a vibe check on how good it's going. And if it can do harder problems, it's a more interesting model. If it behaves better in certain domains, it's a more interesting model. And if that is true, then only do I go and say like, okay, now let me go and see how well this model performs on the actual task I need to think about.
In your like production code in the product you're building.
Exactly. And I usually will never ever think about swapping a model until I've built that intuition on my own. And if it seems like tangentially beneficial, what I view it as, it's not worth the energy that it would take me to go do that and make the system slightly better when I can just make when I can just go ahead and add a new feature. Because it's not about like whether or not you switch the prompt. Switching prompts takes almost as much time as actually writing a new feature usually. Because and it's not even because you're like doing busy work, it's just that writing a feature now is really fast because you can use agentic systems to write code. But evaluating an AI pipeline is always going to be really slow because most people don't have automated evals. So what we're going to do is vibe evals. And if we're going to do vibe evals, we're going to be slower inherently along the way. And that's what I often see as the bottleneck when I go and like decide what I do and don't do with these systems.
Well, and I'll link this talk as well as Ben Stein from AI Engineer talked a little bit about what it's like to be a product manager in the AI world, where you're doing a lot of. He doesn't call it like vibe evals from like an engineering perspective. For him, it's a little bit more like the properties are emergent, and so we can go build a new feature and pull in a new model and then put it in our product. and then goes play around with it in the context of the product and see, oh, it can do this and it can do this. And like by playing and trying and like exploring it, then you back into, oh, that's a cool feature. We want to build for that. Since now we know it can do that, now we bake the evals. Now we do the testing. But this idea that used to happen, Ben put it as like, we used to have this idea of like behavior driven development where like non-technical people would write the specifications of like, in this case it should work like this, and in this case it should work like this, and then we would like, it was like given when then if you've used like cucumber or gherkin or anything like that, it was like less technical people would write this Englishy syntax, and then the engineers would develop that. And like the take is like that doesn't work anymore in the AI world because it's really hard to be able to say we must be able to do this and then like, oh, the models can never do that. But if you just throw the new model into your product and see what can it do now, you're like, oh, it can do that. Okay, cool. Let's go make that part of the spec.
Yeah. With that, let's jump to the fun part of this session, which unless someone has someone else they want to share, but it sounds like most people have the same opinion as us, which is like they usually evaluate one is like, should we even update? If the system is working, don't update it. If you want to try the new model, then you kind of end up vibe evaling along the way. With that, let's talk about how one does vibe eval, because I think that's going to be quite important to actually think about it. So I'm going to screen share my desktop. Again, as always, if you see something you're not supposed to see, please let me know so I can turn it off and clip it out of the screen share. Otherwise,
do a poll real quick because I just fixed your generator versions.
Oh, thank you.
It was cursor hallucinated a generator version, but
that's okay.
Unless you just pulled it down.
I did. I just pulled it. So the prompt that we're going to use is actually the AI that works prompt. We're gonna go ahead and try some of these, especially like the email prompt, to see like how do we actually eval the email prompt. Today we use the Gemini model to go do this. So like, is there a way that we could perhaps see if we can use the non-Gemini model to do better?
And this is something I'm really curious about, especially in the context of like BAML, because BAML I think is my fit for these low level evals of just like, if we change the prompt, are we going to break things we know are supposed to work? But I've never really had a good framework for like, I want to just take this one prompt and test it with the same data across 4 different models and like see what that workflow feels like. So I'm really excited to have you dig into this.
Yeah. Well, like I think the first thing is like, obviously we can go test one model at a time. Oh, did I not set up 1 second. I didn't set up my end bars. I'm going to hide this and then set up my environment variables.
While you're doing that, let me just check the chat here. Sudesh says, we've been testing and validating results of one model against another model, mostly for the batch ecosystem setup, not real time. So there are places where I or my team are quite occupied to even review the results, which are sometimes hallucinated. We tried automated validation of results from one model again. Yeah, having one model look at the outputs of other models is like technically in an academic sense, I think is like papers will say that works better, and LLM as judge works like improves your accuracy. But it also is like that same thing that the post we pointed is like, the more steps you add to your pipeline, the more you're introducing uncertainty. And so if your judge is just as inaccurate as your other models, then you may end up just creating more like stochastic effects and more randomness.
That's true. The challenge we had was mostly in the batch ecosystem, and we were like just lazy enough to review. Like, I mean, to give you guys some context, we do like large reports on candidates, and when we do that, it's painfully stake. I mean, we had some hallucination effects from OpenAI or any standard models. We were like tired of it. So we put them in like some sort of a recursive loop in our ETLs, and that somehow saved us a lot of time because now we have near good level accuracy, meaning both the models are trained very differently, right? Like Llama 3 or OpenAI or Anthropic. So that kind of helps vet the results for us. But this is not really related to this topic. I just thought I'll throw that out there. Yeah, I know you guys are talking about evals of one single model.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question that leading into like what is accuracy, and like accuracy can be hallucination rate. I'm just gonna pull up one more slide that I'll add to the show notes as well. Let me go grab that. Sure, really quick. This is from a talk we gave at the MLOps meetup, or Agents and Prod like virtual conference. Where is this? I think this is the wrong deck. Sorry, let me go find it. Basically the idea that like performance in the past was all about cost latency, like before AI. Here we go. This is the one. Like Vibov says this all the time, right? Can you imagine if your REST API failed on 20% of requests? Like you would be having an outage. You would update your status page, you'd be like, everything is broken. But in an AI, if it gets it right 80% of the time for certain use cases, that's like kind of good enough. And so before AI, we had latency and uptime and cost and security, but now we also have accuracy. And accuracy is like number of hallucinations and a couple other things, but like it's really like depends on your use case, right? Like in certain cases, there are things where like, oh, if the model gets that wrong, the user will be able to tell and they can go change it. But there's other things where it's like, if your model is fetching context from some list of regulations and you want it to like accurately reproduce the content of that regulation in its reasoning trace, that has to be correct. Otherwise, like your app is not only like not helpful, but it's actively harmful. And so this is kind of when we talk about performance. Yeah, go ahead, Sylvia.
Just to articulate what I think you're saying, it seems like you're saying that accurate, or what I'm taking away is that accuracy is implied to also be a stand-in for quality, and it's a poorly defined word, and it can mean a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts, I guess.
I think that's valid. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And it's like again, I'll share the link to the product talk, which is like accuracy and like trade-offs and like what you need and like what makes your product good and like what delivers value for the, because like you could say like 95% accuracy and 99% accuracy from the customer perspective are equivalent. Like those two things both help the user solve their problem in the same way, the same amount.
Well,
But
also,
there are other
like,
cases, yeah.
if I'm vibe coding and I have 80% accuracy, I can just go fix the 20% that's wrong.
Yes.
Or like it's, if accuracy, like in that context, what accuracy means is makes working code. But if it's hallucination rate on factual data, that's a completely different measure than makes working code.
Well, and I think it also depends on you like writing code in Cursor is a very human in the loop experience where it's like even if the code it makes is not quite working or doesn't quite pass the linter or whatever, it's like you still saved me a bunch of time, even though I'm just doing 20% of the work instead of 100% of the work. But in certain workflows, like if it's hard for the human to be like a lot of these like Claude Maxers, hyper engineers, whatever you want to call them, like their goal and like the goal of tools like Claude Code, which is totally headless, is becoming more and more like how do we make it so that you don't have to edit the code, or so that like if the code is wrong, you can fix it with a prompt rather than with something like
Yeah,
going
I
and
had a
editing the
friend
file
who did
yourself.
an experiment. Like he spent about a month having multiple different Claude Code agents prompt each other just to like see how actually good that was right now. And I thought that was an interesting experiment.
Yeah,
I did
I
something
think
similar like yesterday with like 12 sub-agent instances and just one container with two orchestrators, and it was not fun. Didn't do that well.
I think the idea is very, very similar to like, for example, on this email task. Like, what the heck does good accuracy mean for generating good email that's a summary for a blog post of some kind? It's actually really, really ambiguous what it would be. Like, for example,
if
one
we
could
miss bullet
argue-
points, if we miss topics, that's fine. But if the tone sucks, then we're fucked.
Exactly. And for example, like hello first name, I don't personally care about this right now because our workflow right now is we take the email that is generated from this system and then we paste it into loops. If we did this in a fully automated way, then suddenly accuracy of generating hello first name no longer works. Now I need to guarantee that it generates hello first name, and I need to substitute that with the actual variable that they swap out in the loops API system. And now my accuracy constraints and definition have fundamentally changed. So it's possible that a new model allows for that, But I think the real way to always think about it is exactly what Sylvia said, which is you always have to think about the business use case of AI before defining the problem. It's when people talk about like, if you're an engineer or worked with engineers before, you'll often see people that are talking about like, how does this work in the case of like someone's like, I want to make the system faster. But if there's no user criteria attached to making it faster, there's no end goal. Code can always be faster. Code can always be better. But you need always a definition that makes sense for the product. So in this case, the email can always be better. We know that. There's no end to a perfect email. If there was, marketing would be solved and we wouldn't have to do any of this stuff ever again. There'd be one button that you press and you generate the best email. But most things that are worth solving from a business standpoint have no infinite goal. The thing with AI that I think makes people more nervous about this compared to other problems is that the iteration speed feels faster. So we feel like we should get to a faster, better solution faster as well. So we want to converge to the best solution ASAP. So like when a new model comes out, I think the feeling that we're having most of the time is not that this model is going to change everything. It's like, oh, maybe this was what I needed, not a better prompt, not a better software. The model will solve all these problems and make it go away. And sometimes that happens. GPT-4 to GPT-3.5 was a big difference, undeniably so. GPT-4o mini, like Dex said, changed latency in an order of magnitude way. And there's no Vibe evals that Dex did. Dex actually said he will lose accuracy and like reliability in favor of latency because that mattered for his product experience. On the other hand, DeepSeek came out and like the need of it being open source and matching, even if it's worse than GPT-4o, suddenly got a lot of people excited because it opened up use cases that weren't possible before. But if you're a consumer app that has like, let's say like 100,000 users or like 1,000 users, and that isn't a big problem for you, just use GPT-4o. There's no need to eval that system. But I always think it's worth thinking about. So if you have high accuracy constraints, like in this case, we can always make the email better. Let's talk about how we would eval this. Well, the first thing that we would do is what I like to do is just very, very basically just like at least have one test. Like I have one test here and it's written over here. We'll just deal with this. I might actually have a couple more tests. And let's see if I can get it.
But the idea being like if you have one test, you can just drop in 4o mini and just like verify your probably gut instinct that like 4o mini is going to suck at this task. Or drop in Sonnet 4 versus Opus 4 and just kind of see how do these things perform just by looking at the output.
Sorry, I was sharing an nvar and I did not want to share it again. So right over here, we're spending almost no money because the system's pretty good. But if I go into here, what prompt am I on? I'm on email structure prompt. That's what I run. Okay, cool. I'll just make another test case just so I have two now. Okay, then I have two test cases. And this is literally a thing from cracking the prompting interview. That's the subject. It has this and like dumps out a bunch of stuff that describes cracking the prompting interview along with what the next session is about. And I can just go
Okay, cool. So this is, sorry, the inputs to this are the outputs from parsing the transcript and just asking it to pull out these 4 different like categories of insights.
Exactly. And like it talks about labels, diarization, a few other things. So I'm not going to eval the whole pipeline. I'm going to eval just as one step. Because evaling the whole pipeline is a thing I can do, but like it's way easier to just make sure that the one step got better, and then I can make the other step go better. And the analogy that I always use in myself is like a long time ago, it was definitely true that most people could write better assembly than what C could write. But now the C compiler is always going to be better than most people can ever write. And like systems get better over time. I think we're in the assembly era of prompting right now. We're probably not at a point where like systems can automatically heal themselves not because they can't do it, but most people don't have good problem definitions on which they need to optimize for. So therefore, the best thing you can do is first get a good grasp of your problem. So if I just like go ahead and quickly run this, I'll run this test specifically, and we'll just see how well it works. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk about how we can eval multiple models, because I think that's the part that everyone is really, really interested in. So we'll do from import B. have to install one more thing. UV run, UV add identic. I think I'll sync. Cool. So it is running. All the environment variables are running correctly. So we'll just see how well this works. Python restart language server. Why is it not picking up? This is the most annoying thing about Python. You have to set the environment variables correctly. And I believe I have to do one last thing, which is I have to tell it to generate.
Probably have to generate. Oh yeah, I was putting in an app, but
Oh, that's okay. I'll just put it directly there. And what we'll do is we'll do b dot, and the test that I'm making is only on draft email. So like draft email. And I'm gonna pass in some sort of summary into it and then a structure along with it. And then I'm gonna like get the results. And at some point, what I want to do is swap the models. So like, let's really quickly make a test case from this. So I will summary equals there you go. And then we'll Claude fill these out. That's the wrong thing I want. And I'll do its thing, but while it's doing its thing, I basically have a result. Now, the first thing I'll notice is what I really want to do is I'm gonna do the very, very quickly dumbest thing that I can do, which is, no, I don't want this. Which is, I'm just gonna save this to disk. And I'll just dump the data out and that will do something for me.
you want to
Now,
put a timestamp in there?
I'll do that in a second. Now,
Okay.
what I really want to do when I go run this system is actually dot end. There we go.
Cool.
UV add dot end. Oh,
Python.env.
dot end. That is like the worst naming of any package ever, and I hate it. I wish they would just take dot env over. And it does this, adds this stuff in there, and then prints this out. Now, the real thing that I really, really want to do over here is I want to make sure that whatever I'm dumping into here is actually like parameterized over a lot of test suites. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say def load test name stir tuple.
Okay, so
Sorry.
you're going to be storing your test data on disk as JSON.
Exactly. I'm just going to load it, and I'm going to load it into here, and I'm going to go send both the data out of here. And the reason that I'm going to go do this is now what I'm really going to do in my eval set is not just this. And for now, what I will do is I'll just like
yeah.
I'm just going to hard code these for now. And did I spell structure wrong? What did I do wrong?
You have an
Do I-
indent somewhere. Oh, your indent on summary needs to have come back one.
Oh my God, I hate Python.
Love Python. Best
Oh.
language. Hey, I set this up for TypeScript, dude. You could have done this all in TypeScript if you wanted to.
Yeah. I will. And then what I'm really going to do after this is I'm going to go and like run a bunch of models. So I'm going to have a bunch of tests, and I'll say, and I can choose what dimension I run this on. I can run it per test per model, or I can run per model per test. It's up to me. And the dimension
Oh,
does.
I see. So you're going to do like a nested for loop, basically,
Yeah.
like for each test, run the same test against 4 models and then dump them out so we can look at them.
I'll just like write all these out. It doesn't really matter. And I have some models that I've already defined. So like if I go into
Okay, so you're not going to generate multiple BAML clients like in the BAML source. So you're going to use
I
like the
have some that
dynamic
I'll
client
define over
builder.
here. I have
Okay.
some that I'll define over here, and some I won't. So I'm just going to run 3 models. I'm GPT-4o Mini. I'm going to run this. I'm going to run my Gemini Smart. I think I have a different model as well called my Gemini Smart somewhere over here. So I'll just go to these and just see what else I have. I have like my Gemini, which is going to use a Flash as well.
Cool. Nice.
And I'll just put these all in here. I won't think about it, and I'm going to run each of these models along the way. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to run like for model in this. Client registry equals client. I think I can just do this.
I think I see where you're going with this, Vaibhav. Are you trying to do like dynamic passing of the model names by the client?
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
Sorry. I'm typing very slow today. I don't know why.
The client or Baml Pi, right?
Pi, yeah. Sorry, I slept very late last night, so I'm a little bit slower than I normally am when I type. And like, boom, we're just gonna set the model, and now we're gonna give the eval for that model. Now, the problem that I want to do here is I'm gonna want to also do this for every test. So I'll say for test in this range. And then for this, I'm now gonna go run the test. It's basically a parameterized test suite, but there's a reason that I'm not using PyTest.
Do you want to move this in here? The load test based on the test name.
And the reason that I'm not using PyTest right away is that the way that I'm going to run this test is actually going to be async. So I want to run all this stuff in async mode.
Nice.
And the reason I want to run all of this in async mode is because this is going to be a lot of stuff. I don't really want to think about what I run when I have basically infinite capacity. So I'm just going to run maximally parallel stuff.
Do you have to change where you're writing to also?
Say that again?
With open result.json.
Yeah, so it gets tricky when you do evals with this kind of stuff. And the reason that this gets tricky is because at some point, some of these are going to fail. You just know that if you're running a bunch in parallel all the time, like model outages naturally happen. You might put retry logics in here. You might do all sorts of things. But at some point, some of these are going to fail. So there's a couple of ways to do this. And what I always do is I just do this, def run unit. I always run it wrapped in a thing. And I always run it this way. And I will also do like the saving and everything in here, right in here as well. So if I'm going to go save something, I'll save it in this function directly. And then I will just do a try. Except. And we'll use an upturn. And I'll just guarantee that this function is not allowed to fail.
God, I love Python.
Say that again.
I love Python.
Yes, indeed. That is how I feel about this. But I mean, you're going to have to do this anytime because we have a high network dependency. And if you're truly running evals, you're probably running like 500 of them, 100 of them at large test bandwidth. So like you're going to have to design code. If you're only running 10, it doesn't really matter. Just go do it. But if you're running a lot, this does matter and starts making a huge difference. So now we can go do this. We run the unit test and we go do this. But then we get to have the best part is we just have to have like a tasks queue now. And our problem goes away. And now we have a really, really nice, wait, what is this?
We got to fix this, how you're writing to the disk or something.
Sorry, I'm going to fix this.
Nice.
Right. And now this no longer needs to write to disk. And then boom.
Well, something needs to write to disk, right?
This part right here. I'll write to disk right over here. I'm going to write in this method. This is where I'm going to go do this. But I don't want to do it anywhere else. I really only want to do it here. Now, the other thing that I'm going to run into is all this stuff is going to run really massively in parallel. So how do I want to think about this? I have to think about what I'm going to go do. So I'm going to have like a target directory.
I think you also need to return from the run unit test function. It's returning none.
Yeah, I can just ignore that, but I can just like also just return like true.
Yeah.
or return false. And that's okay. I can look some. There you go. And this will give me some modicum of something. It'll be like, it'll tell me how many tests actually passed versus failed. And there's some count over here. And then the other thing that I want to do is I just want to save this to disk. And it kind of figured it out what I want to go do. So like, let's just leave it at this. I don't want to think about it. I'm going to go run this. I'm going to create one more test really fast from here. I wish it would just do it, but it did not do it properly. I'll do it manually.
I don't think you need the transcript, right?
I don't remember what we passed into this, so I'll try. It's a long freaking transcript. I forgot how big these things
Yeah,
are.
the whole point of this was like we were showing off how Gemini can be used with the whole transcript, but yeah. I guess you could keep the transcript if you wanted to.
Why did you say you don't use PyTest again? I might have missed that part.
Because when I run everything in parallel, it starts to get tricky. How I want to save stuff, how I want to go do things. It gets really
okay.
tricky. And like the thing about PyTest is it's like a unit testing framework. When you're running evals, it's much, much closer to Jupyter notebooks than anything PyTest is going to go do.
Yep.
So it's actually like the better, you wouldn't use Jupyter notebooks and PyTest for the same thing.
Yep.
And this
is
is
exploratory, right?
Exactly. Okay, let's have Cursor do some more work. One second. We're actually working on exporting test cases to here because it sounds very useful. Right, both tests. Oh, no. What the fuck?
You said revert, dude.
I realized that. How do I get back?
Can you Command Z?
Can't.
Can you undo?
Can't. It's gone. Okay.
Yeah, it's gone.
Oh my freaking God. Sorry.
Oh, you could be like that guy that posted
no.
on Twitter about how Cursor deleted a month's worth of your work.
Wow, that was a lot.
This is why I don't use Cursor anymore. It's like the UX is there's just one thing that there's just certain times it just doesn't
Yes.
behave in a nice
I
way.
thought I accepted the change and everything. Is there a way that I can fix this? Let me just see.
It's the same chat. If you didn't run the second prompt, if you just clicked off, it would have fixed it. But it's gone now.
No, it's gone. It's gone. So I apologize, friends. We're gonna have to wait a second while I go do this again.
And Dexter, do you use Cloud Code for everything now?
I'm using Claude. I haven't opened an editor in about a month, and I shipped 8 PRs yesterday.
Dex is one of the best cloud coders that I've seen. I'm actually trying to learn from him. Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm restraining my my instinct to. Okay, so it does have it in like the edit history, so it can kind of figure. It seems like it kind of remembers what you were doing.
Kinda. It's almost
But
there.
you lost your dot end. You lost everything.
Wait, Dex, drop some Cloud Code like lower while we wait.
Once Vibov gets this running, I'll take over for a sec, and I'll whatever the next change we make once the initial thing is done, I can take over and we'll show you some Claude tricks.
Nice.
Okay. Target their results. Okay, I think we're mostly done. This will, I think, work in theory.
You lost your dot env though. You need to get dot env back.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
But yeah, let's try. We haven't run any code in a while. I'm curious just to like kind of run the simple version and see what happens, and then we can iterate
Well,
from there.
I have to still migrate these tests. But I think I can do it in a slightly nicer way, which is, let me try. Okay, and then maybe I should have used Claude Code, and that was my mistake.
It's always a mistake.
I don't trust it anymore.
Well, it's very also interesting to see what's going to happen with the pricing change because I know I went to a meetup in SF a couple of weeks ago that was like the Claude Maxers meetup, and they literally like checked receipts at the door. If you're not spending more than $50 a day on AI coding tools, then you don't get in.
Really?
And there was a
That's
lot of people at that meetup.
I think Cloud said it was like 5% of their users effective. That's a lot. Like, there's a lot of power users just running like
Yeah,
6 hours a day.
Yeah, and it's very quickly overnight became like I think when Sonnet 4 and Opus 4 came out, I think Anthropic was probably serving 10% of their inference or 20% of their inference to Claude Code, and it probably jumped up to like 50%. Like I think the heaviest like per token users are definitely going to be the
All
Claude
right,
Code
we'll go
people who
let
are
this
like
run.
I'm
running
still
10 in
using
parallel.
3.5 for everything.
You what?
While this is running, the
I'm
next
still
thing that
using
we really do is
3.5,
like
Claude
the
3.5.
first thing that you'll notice is once this thing is actually done running, we're just gonna have a bunch of JSON files. JSON files are garbage. They're not very useful at all because like when I go look at them, I won't be able to do anything. So let's go do something else now. Oh, please don't fuck me, cursor. Let's start a new
New
chat.
chat.
I don't
Thank
want to try
you. Commit.
this. Make a UI
Git add.
table. It's Streamlit. Is it Streamlit? I don't know what it is.
Yep. Streamlit should work. It's pretty good at Streamlit.
So I can render the results. And, yeah. Oh, what the fuck did it do? Cloud Code did some stuff.
There you go. So it's
No.
editing the JSON files for you.
Okay, made one file for me for test and married gun. Cool. Okay, it's got two files that I think are mostly good.
This is the last one, burning guinea fowl.
And then I don't want to touch this file. I'm kind of scared, so I'm gonna let it do its thing. And because I deleted all the code, I became super cautious right away because I don't trust this.
Okay.
I think we're almost done. All right, let's just go run this really fast. And the first thing I'll do is I'll notice that what you'll notice is like the first thing you'll notice is I don't actually trust whether the AI thing is going to work or not. I don't know if the Cloud Code generated code is good. This is the only thing I hate about Cloud Code VS Code. I can't hide it. So I'm actually not going to run the code. I'm just going to run it like this, not save it to
You're just
disk.
going to make sure it kind of compiles and works.
Exactly. Test name is incorrect. That work?
You had some pydantic error.
I think I'm running the wrong test. There we go. That one worked. And then email structure and then burning.
So what are those names again? What is married guan burning guinea fowl?
They're just like the two test names that I had.
Yeah, when you pull tests from the BAML console, it just makes up a like random string for
Yeah.
you. Adjective animal, I
It
think.
doesn't really matter. But now that I have the test, I can go run this and this will run. And while this is doing this, I will also do that. Make the results. And I'm gonna run this. Okay. while this is running, I'm now going to start another Cloud Code task. I got scared by a cursor, so I don't think I'll use it anymore. Update the app to be a Streamlit app that renders the result as they come in for each variant. For each variant. Cool. Let's see what it does. And the first thing I really want to do is I just want to like vibe code a somewhat decent UI so I can actually just iterate. Because if I can't actually see my results, like you'll notice in here, email draft is not JSON serializable because I'm dumb. Model dump JSON is what I should have done. And that would produce a dict object that would do everything.
Do we do mode equals JSON because you need it to convert the timestamps if there's any timestamps? Yeah.
So thank you. I'm gonna let it run again.
I dump a lot of JSON in my day, Vibov. Let me tell you.
I can see that. So like this is like one of the few things like this is why it's just really good to not like go all out on your evals and wait the whole time for everything, because if you do that, you'll just get stuck. Sure, why not? I'll let it generate the Streamlit app, and then it's going to go use this function to go run the unit test. And once this thing is done, as you can see over here, it dumped out a bunch of stuff. And I can actually go look at each of these and see how well they do. But as you can see, it's actually going to be hard for me to go read all this. So, yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the JSON Unicode serialized emojis is atrocious.
Yep, exactly. UV run sync. I don't actually know how to run a Streamlit app, but I've run it a few times. So I always have to look at how to go do it.
I think you just UV run it.
No.
Oh, UVX Streamlit run. Oh, yeah, there you go.
There you go. So it actually lets you select the test as you're going to do it, lets you select model, and then I can just run the evals.
So you have this, you have this Pydantic issue where whatever your test data is like missing certain fields.
Because of this stupid thing. Let me
just paste it into Claude.
No, this one is like the wrong test case. That's why.
Okay.
It was called
search for email structure.
There we go. There you go.
Nice. Oh, it just loads them in. Yeah, your input JSON. Just paste that error into Claude.
That is also a good idea.
No, just put, yeah, okay.
Maybe I give it too much context. It is running though, and it is definitely running something.
Yeah.
And it's running to like JSON serializable errors. And then I just have to go fix that one error, which is JSON dot.
It's off track. Yeah, okay, good. Here we go.
Cool. And I think this should get us caught up. If this is done. I usually do this in TypeScript. I thought I'd do it in Python today, and I think that was a mistake. And the reason I use TypeScript for everyone else's context of why I prefer to go do that is because what I really want is I want a quick React app that I can just like run a simple system in and just see what's happening.
Why don't you push what you have? Because I can kind of show off how we might quickly translate this to TypeScript.
Let's do it. Well, let me see if it's running yet. One last thing, and then if this runs, then I think we're good.
Dex, could you just also talk out aloud when you're doing some of the translation work? Because some of us don't really know TypeScript that well.
I mean, I'll ask Claude to talk out loud.
That would be great. Whatever works.
It's going to be very verbose, so we might have to skim it, but I can paste the trace in or whatever.
Yeah.
Y'all can read it later.
The hard part of all the systems, as many of you can see, is the hard part is actually not the AI part. It's actually building the infra so you can actually go render everything. Okay, well, this isn't really working, so I'm gonna change trajectories. Instead of the app doing that, just make a Streamlit app that loads the data from the results directory and renders it. I gave up. I'm gonna do a simpler thing, and this is like just get more guaranteed to be good. I'm just gonna load the data from the results directory and just like render it and then see what happens. Because I think I'm just gonna have way more likelihood of success in that scenario.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Yes, and that's a simple way to go about it. While I'm doing this, I realize a couple more things. The model name over here is going to have an escape slash, so I need to go unescape that. Unescaped model.
Perfect.
I'm gonna go deal with this. Show that off. Go deal with this. I'm gonna make that directory, import OS. And then UV run stream. This should, in theory, be a lot more reliable. If this app will load, and now I can go see it. And like really what I want to go do is I literally just want to see these side by side and just go read it. Because that is the only true way that I can actually eval them. And I just have to go build this. And if I don't build this UI, no matter what I do, it won't be good. And the first thing you can notice when I build this UI is like I can immediately see that one of them is just longer than the other. Take a really quick glance thing that I can get without reading it. And I can see one of them includes bold text, the other one doesn't. For better or for worse, it doesn't really matter. But the fact is, like, the UI-based vibe eval system that we built here is just gonna be a lot better than anything else that we could do manually. So if I go ahead and go do this again, UV run main.py, we'll run this, and then I think, what did I do? Email structure, did I delete the wrong one? Oh. Which was that one? I didn't want married one. One email structure. Email structure, yeah. If I go ahead and run this, it's going to go ahead and produce a bunch of tests for me really fast while it goes to run. And then it should have a new directory structure here to make my life slightly easier when I go do this. Change the dir structure to be not allowed JSON, and then it's going to dump stuff in there. So I'll just run this. And then this should be able to run the Streamlit app and then be able to read from it. And now you'll see I have a lot more tests in here. I have Anthropics on it and OpenAI as well that it wasn't reading before because of the directory structure. And like one of the most practical things that I think a lot of people underlook when they build these eval systems is the amount of work that you have to put into actually like building out all this like infra tooling is surprisingly large. It's way more than I ever expected. And this is the same kind of work. If you go talk to any data scientist, go talk to any machine learning person that was doing it before the LLM era, what they'll tell you is 90% of the job is not training the model. 90% of the job is getting the data in the right shape so you can make the right decisions. And that is so annoying, but that problem doesn't magically go away. When you work with LLMs, it's just something you have to do very, very frequently. So in this
And this is why people talk about how important evals are. And like when we did the episode with Brian, he's like, I'll share the code, I'll share the prompts. The only thing I will not show on screen is the evals, because that's the part that takes the most work and the most thought. And it is about knowing your problem. And I think as we get to this world where it's like more and more code is written by AI and more software can be trivially reproduced. Like if you wanted to build a copy of VS Code, you could do that with AI. There are like techniques and processes where you can take large, complex software. As long as everything is documented, you can build specs and plans to reproduce any
Exactly.
existing piece of software. And so the real moat is like taste and knowing what your users want and having like hard coded like results of looking at stuff and deciding what good looks like, because then you can iterate on your stuff and then you can learn and then you can keep making the software better.
And even over here, like think about how complicated it is for me to actually like go build this out. Like I can't actually analyze emails like this. Like this is not a good readable format. So what I really want is I want A and B for every test case. So I can see for every test case, I want to just swap out random models. So I'm going to tell Gemini to do, I'm going to tell it to do that. Instead of showing every model for every test case for a given test case, I want two side-by-side dropdowns.
All right. After this, I'm gonna make you commit and push, and I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna.
So I can see side by side of model versus model. What does that? And this is just a really important thing because like the thing that I actually would want to build here is not even like an eval suite. What I really want to build is infra where my team can go eval this stuff very quickly. You can think of it like building any sort of internal tooling that you would be building for your own company. And you have to, again, what we're trying to do here is decide what the goal of this eval is. And the goal of this eval is I want to know what email is better. I'm going to send this out to like a bunch of people. And like now I can go do this. And it becomes really easy for me to go see this. Like, okay, let me swap this out and see how well this works. Which one do I like better?
Oh, this is better. Yeah, this is great.
And like now we can quickly see which one we like. These look almost the same. Are they the same? No, this is my Gemini. So this is Flash. This is the Better Pro. And it seems like Flash almost got everything right, but it forgot about the next session. So like, okay, clear. Flash is definitely a loser. Let me just move on to the next one and go on. But you notice something here. I did this super manually. If I'm sharing this with my team, I need to add a new feature to my eval dashboard, which is a thing where I can leave my notes in here. Now that's another thing I have to go build. Another thing that I want to build is like just like really quickly like invalidate this and just say like Flash is bad. So I might want to build like an X, so I can just click X over here and like remind myself that I've already seen Flash compared to Gemini. And there's all sorts of systems you can build along the way here to just decide which one is better. Same thing here, like this one just doesn't like it. This one I guess made it a lot shorter, which could be better. 1, 2, 3, you got this one. It dropped one of the bullet points, which might be fine. I don't really care. So if I was okay with this, then Anthropic Sonnet would be like, seems okay. And GPT-4o Mini, I don't really like this one. This one literally just made a giant blob of text, and that's not what we want to send out. So this becomes immediately invalidated. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm
I like the 4o Mini one. It's like got a little bit of like a Hemingway vibe where it's just like lots of little short sentences.
Dude, I hate this. But that's the thing. And you can see how we just disagree on this.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to quickly evaluate this in the previous.
But now, okay, one more feedback loop I want to do. Like, go change the prompt now and then rerun this. And like, this shows how you can iterate on, you like use this as a system to iterate. Like, because it's not just on like which one's better across the model, but it's like, okay, now let's change it. Let's see how it changes all the models and how all the models perform.
Exactly. And then the other thing you're going to run into if we change the prompt is now you need to be able to compare the previous version of the prompt against this part. So now we have 3 dimensions we're comparing against: the model, the version, and the model at the same time. So, and there's no, and a lot of people will try and sell you like, hey, I have the perfect UI for you. We're going to solve all your problems. The fact of the matter is there's no perfect UI. To be completely honest, for seeing an email, this is probably a better UI than like a dashboard where that just shows you JSON. I don't want to see the JSON. I want to see something that looks like an email and reads like an email and renders the markdown. For rendering coordinates on an image, I want to see the actual image with a box drawn around the coordinates of the image. And every single thing you have to do is bespoke and unique. So you just have to do the work to go do this. And like vibe code it like we did over here. VJ's got a question.
Or like,
No, just an afterthought that you could split the entire email body like we did earlier, in multiple, like an introduction paragraph and a final, like call to action or whatever, and then pass them, like evaluate them, whatever. Then you can again actually it's no longer just a body anymore, but you have multiple segments to work with different bodies again. So you're dissecting the problem into smaller problems basically.
Exactly. And then the other thing that you could end up doing is, even though you dissect it into smaller problems, you could still assemble it from the eval perspective as one big thing. So from the eval perspective, it looks like the big thing. And now we can build small tooling. So like, for example, I'll show you something cool. LLMs tend to, sorry, Dex, I'll push it over in 1 second. I really
No,
want
you're
to
good. I think at this point we can wrap it up soon and go to questions. And I just all the activity in the chat is telling me like let's do our next episode on context engineering with coding CLIs. I think that's a great topic.
LLMs tend to produce things like M dashes and hyperboles. Build a detector for that in the UI by highlighting LME stuff. So I can go build this. I can just like add it to the UI, where one of the things it's going to do is just highlight a bunch of stuff for me. And like if I go look at the diff of what's going to generate, did I miss it? No, I didn't. Cool.
This is interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's using a regex to detect things that look like LME.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. Like, we don't need it to be perfect. We just need to be good enough. And
that's actually a dope feature.
Exactly, because we're doing content generation. Right.
Yeah.
So
will you flip back to the UI before this gets? I just want to grab a screenshot real quick for the episode. Perfect. Okay, and then we can show another one once it has the LLM detectors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it better put absolutely, and you're absolutely right in that regex.
Certainly.
That's funny.
Sylvia's got a question.
So like it's put a bunch of stuff in here. It's like undoubtedly, incredibly, like I don't even know what that means. Sure, whatever.
Comprehensive needs to be in there.
The backslash B is it's beginning of the word.
Oh,
that word boundary.
Sorry, I'm dumb. Yes, yes. As you can see, I spend very little time writing regex. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, Bob replaced all his regexes with 4.0 mini like 6 years ago.
If 4.0 mini is amazing at regex. And like, boom, now we can just see this right away. And you can see how like I just improved the eval system really fast without doing too much work.
Yeah, and this is what actually I forget. I think it was Sarah Catanzaro at Amplify Partners posted this like a year ago. Like talked to 100 AI founders, and one of her big takeaways is like the eval harness is basically just like any other test system. It's quite easy to build, and the actual value in evals is generating the data of like what's good and what's not, so that you can continue to improve.
Tried to solve a problem using. So Vijay, I think the interesting thing about this is like what I'm not trying to do is I'm not trying to solve the problem of saying that this is perfect. What I'm trying to do with this goal, the reason I even came up with this UI is not because I think this is perfect. But what I really want to do is I just want the user who's evaluating to quickly see certain things. And I'm like, okay, like, because if I scan this, I might not even notice that an M dash existed here. But like, I don't know if you go on Reddit, if you go anywhere, you'll often see people now complaining about like, M dashes post, I just ignore them because they're all AI generated. And some people auto filter emails that have M dashes in them. And there's all sorts of these risks that are now happening because of AI generated behavior. So I want to go and like flag for that quickly.
That's really sad because some of us like M dashes.
I love the
I
M
do
dash.
too, and now I explicitly remove them because like I'm in a lot of like founder groups and just general. I've talked to a lot of folks, and like most people remove them.
The LLM has been poisoning my training data with M dashes.
Yeah, I think actually like the trick is like just like we did on Twitter in 2013, intentional typos. And I've been using M dashes for 10 years, but I've always used them wrong. People tell me that's the wrong way to use an M dash. And I'm like, no, this is how I use M dashes. So there's my trick. You can keep your M dash as long as you use it wrong. Like put spaces around it. The correct way to use an M dash is to have it like touch both words with no spaces around it. But if you put spaces around it, no one ever you can prove, hey, that's not an LLM because I did it wrong.
I do that all the time. That's my human way.
Yeah.
I feel like people that think that people don't know how to use M dashes and that only agents do probably don't know the proper usage of M dashes.
Yeah.
So
Sylvia had another question.
I'm gonna turn this into an email really fast.
Yeah. So I had just wanted to summarize what Vibhub was saying earlier, where it seems like evaluation tooling is incredibly specific to the definition of accuracy and the actual business problem that the LLM is being used to solve, and thus it has to be bespoke.
Dex?
Doesn't have to be bespoke, but it's easy to do it bespoke, and then you have full flexibility. This is kind of exactly how ShadCN works, where it's like scaffold out the core of it that is like basic best practices, but then you can change everything you want. And now the code is really cheap. I think in general, it's like if you have the patterns or the outline, or you have a template that you can use for this stuff, then and then you customize it with a vibe coding tool or something like that, I think that's probably right. There are for certain like if you are drawing bounding boxes on images, there are tools that will do it better and more completely than whatever you can vibe code in an hour, for sure. If your use case is super generic, but also like if you're building evals for a super generic use case, you're probably already cooked because that shit's been around for 5 years.
Exactly. And like you'll notice what I just did really fast, because I built this eval dashboard, I did something. I literally added a new model called ChatGPT really quickly, where I literally just went to ChatGPT, generated the same JSON. And I'm just gonna have it go do that again. And I will generate it for this one as well. I'll go render this. And this isn't even me doing this manual. I just went to ChatGPT, did this straight up. I just asked it to zero shot, do the model. And what I want to do now, I can go here, in theory, I should see ChatGPT pop up. And I can just like compare it. We know that we like My Gemini Smart, and then we know that we have a new one called ChatGPT, so we can just like compare it. And like the first thing you'll notice is just like, yeah, there's just a lot more M dashes right away in ChatGPT. And this is without me having to read it. It's a lot shorter, it's a lot different, and this one reads a little bit more AI generated. If someone saw this one, they wouldn't see that. But like what I'm trying to do in evals is just like really quickly detect it and see what happens. And I'm trying to make life easier for the developer so that the person that's actually building the pipeline can quickly decide is ChatGPT better or not in my use case. And if you build a good framework, then ideally what you'll have is you'll slowly make this system better and better and better for this part of your pipeline. And you will likely not end up with just one of these systems. You'll end up with tons of these systems. Because you'll have
and
one.
you can
go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, and one of the dimensions that we're not tracking here is the actual prompt itself. Like you could actually take 5 models, 5 prompts, and then generate, what is it, 25 outputs, and then have a one-on-one like voting system and just have people go through which one is better until you get to the best one. And then that's how you kind of decide what to develop on.
Exactly. And the real problem here that everyone runs into, from my experience, is just the fact that like these are complex, multi-dimensional problems. You're indexing on the test case, you're indexing on the model, you're indexing on the prompt, you're indexing on any such variety of stuff.
Which episode are we doing the email for? All that stuff could be variables.
Exactly, right? So like all that stuff just takes time to go build out. And sadly, there's no shortcut. And the best thing you can do is like, well, I mean, we do have a shortcut, which is you use LLM to generate all the code so you don't have to build it. And we went from nothing to fully running the test suite to actually viewing multiple models to actually having a UI that we can go eval stuff on in less than an hour.
And we deleted all the code once.
And yeah, and we deleted all the code ones. Stuff is really fast now. You just have to go do, and this is going to be way faster than like any automated LLM eval suite that you do today. And it's not that it's naturally going to be better. It's just that I don't have a clear definition for what a great email is. So I can put LLM as judge, but like, I don't even know what it's going to judge on. Like, it's not going to be very helpful right now for this.
Right, you need to get your judge prompt really well and eval that separately.
Yeah, exactly. And if I were doing LLM as judge, what I would do here is I'd write another prompt to go and eval the email at the very end here to say, how is this one good? And then I'd literally write the annotation here of what the judge says. And then I can eval the judge prompt while evaling the main prompt. And it becomes this huge meta problem along the way. Vijay, you had a question?
I just have an afterthought again, because we are evaluating the structure of emails. Naturally, since we are trying to develop the entire email structure, recently we did one implementation of outbound emails, like email sales. And we noticed that, for example, we were targeting executives for a small segment, and none of these executives actually read their emails. It was LLMs doing their emails. So we sat and evaluated all of these complex systems like you just mentioned. Turns out they don't care. So they wanted it in a particular structure, in a particular format, without complex URLs or images or whatever. So the point is, I think it's not just about getting the structure right, but it is about actually understanding the entire end-to-end use case and see how this brings impact to the business, because we need to keep that in perspective as well. End of the day, that outcome is what is delivering value, and not this particular outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And like I think what I would do here is just like, if I were building this out more holistically, like there's small checks that I would build. For example, how many of the links here are made up versus valid?
Yeah, that
wanna
can be your
validate
like runtime guards, right? Is like go try to fetch every link and make sure that it actually returns a 200 or whatever.
Yeah, or I could just do that only in my eval suite. I don't actually
Yeah.
have to go do it everywhere. I can just purely do it in my eval suite.
Yeah.
I can go validate that like there's no placeholders like this one. Like if there's like a word with like a bracket with like the word here on it, I can go detect that and detect placeholders, because that seems to be a pretty common pattern. And
Mhm.
there's like any such things that I could go build slowly over time to make the system as good as I need it to be. I think Sylvia had a question a while ago. I don't know if the question still exists.
I think it was addressed.
Okay, awesome. With that, any other questions before we get to show off something really freaking cool today?
All right, this will be your teaser preview for the next. You got to come in and push this though.
Okay, let me push it. Made some change, added eval system. Let me make sure I did not accidentally check in my .env file. Yes. For comparing models plus test cases.
We're not going to be able to go deep on this because we don't have time, but this will be your teaser for next week. And I think, yeah, next week it seems like there's a ton of interest in doing like a how do we do context engineering for coding agents like Claude Code and Gemini CLI and stuff like
Okay,
that.
I pushed. I will let you screen share. I thought this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'll give a little primer because I'm usually very, very suspect on most things. But like vibe coding is kind of annoying. But I think vibe coding is a different kind of coding than cursor or anything else is. And like, I think when I first met someone that was trying to go do this, I was just like, cursor just feels wrong. And we saw examples of it today. Like what I'm really trying to do is I'm not really writing code, I'm watching the code. And like that showed me something that was really freaking cool, which is what does an IDE look like if your primary incentive is to like watch the code, not write the code yourself. Is that a good description, Dex?
Yeah, I think that's right. So this is kind of our tool for multiplexing Claude codes. This is open source. We can go deeper next week, but this is a system that lets you run lots of Claude codes in parallel. So I can say start bootstrapping a new Next.js app. So I have one Claude running and doing the bootstrapping. I have another Claude building a plan to research the current code base and find the Streamlit app and go through all of this. Let's see. We are tracking the to-dos here. But basically, the interesting thing here is not like, hey, there's a UI on Claude Code that's a little bit nicer. The interesting thing here is really like the process that we use for prompting Claude to do this like continual compacting markdown and doing context engineering by using sub-agents to research and fetch things. And sort of like, I think, I forget, the SourceGraph CTO talked about this at AI Engineer, which is like the skill of wielding coding agents. If you just shout at Claude what you want, you're not going to get great results. But if you are able to kind of wield the agent well, then all right, so this one's not going to work because it's going to have to do a bunch of shell things. So there's still certain things that we do, but essentially like what we've been doing a lot at Human Layer lately is basically like closing the editor. And what we do have is we do a lot of like reading implementation plans. And so this is what we're editing right now is like markdown files that talk about the code and how it's going to change. Because if you can get this right, then the implementation is always really, really clean. And so we spend way more time reviewing and like nitpicking these implementation plans that talk about what the architecture is going to be than we do actually nitpicking. Like I barely review code anymore. And like I said, I haven't opened a file in an editor in like a month because we mostly just look at these plans. And so everything we're doing is open source. We'll keep the specs is the thing that we're not publishing just yet. Because that's the valuable thing. Because if an AI agent is good and you're prompting it right, then you can take any spec and turn it into working code. So anyways, that's a little preview. If you're interested in playing with this, happy to I'll throw a link in the email. We have a waitlist sign up. Especially if you like Superhuman or you like using Vim mode and you hate touching the mouse. This is a really fun set of tools that we've been messing with, and curious to see what people think. Questions,
Yeah.
thoughts, Vaibhav? What do you want to see here?
I mean, number one thing I saw is like, look, the infrastructure for me of like setting up Git work trees and all this other stuff is just annoying. And like this, you just want something that kind of does that for you. That's why I found it personally kind of interesting.
Oh, the work tree stuff. Yeah, we can talk about work trees next week too. We haven't built in work tree support for this yet, but we have a bunch of prompts that make it pretty easy to create work trees for all of this. But
yeah, I think we should tell this. It'll be fun. I think like multiplexing and like vibe coding in general has been really good. Maybe I'll get someone else from my team to show up as well, who's I think is a much better vibe coder than I am, as we all discovered. I delete my code way more often by accident. But I'll show that off in a bit. With that, I think that's it for today's episode. Unless someone's got one last question, we'll take one more if there is one. Otherwise, we're gonna log off, and then we'll come back next week where we'll talk about actually like what the full vibe coding workflow is for like building agents.
Yeah, we're gonna make all of you 99.9th percentile vibe coders. It's gonna be a good time. And if anyone has a cool vibe coding workflow that you want to share next week, like think about it, and we can maybe have people do like 1 to 2 minute demos. Sorry, was there a question?
Oh, I was just saying, I'm not trying to be a 99th percentile vibe coder yet. I feel like I gotta be a 99th percentile coder first.
A lot of people are skipping that part.
I think the way I was also very skeptical, to be completely honest with that. But like the thing that has changed my perspective is like my gut instinct is not to use AI. And I think that part of the reason is like, one, I feel like I'm a very efficient developer, so I write code generally fast. Two, I kind of feel like AI, I have this natural bias because I'm still thinking about GPT-3.5 and GPT-4 sometimes about the limits of today's models. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. But what I've been trying to do now is I have a new policy, which is like for any feature I implement, I spend 10 minutes on Claude or Cursor or something like that. And after that, what I end up doing is at the end of 10 minutes, I either decide, do I think I'll finish this task in 30 minutes or not? If the answer is no, then I go back to coding. If the answer is yes, I stay vibe coding. And it has been a really good mental model for me to get over.
You're doing something that I think is really important, which is Jeff Huntley calls deliberate intentional practice.
Yeah, and it's just like I have to muscle my way to do this.
The reason why I've been so skeptical is because I've been like coding for less than a year and a half at this point. So I'm just like, I really want good foundations.
Yeah, that maybe. Like I said, it's hard to know. I don't know what's best or what's wrong, but I'm just sharing my practice. But we'll talk about this stuff a lot more and like other things that we've been having the team do to get better at like shipping code faster along the way.
But that's the idea. Is like it's good to just try it for. I actually really like what you just said, Bob. Is like let me try it for 10 minutes a day before I go start to do my old thing.
10 minutes
and that's
a
like
feature. 10 minutes a feature, not 10 minutes a day.
If you are going to learn anything, and the LLM is essentially a very complex instrument, and we all need to learn to play it. And the problem is that they ship a new version of the instrument every month, and you got to learn to play that one too. But I think that's the future is going to look a lot like something that is a little more art than science, and something that is a lot more feel than concrete. But if you can stay on the bleeding edge of what the best in class looks like in that world, you're gonna reap rewards.
Anyway, we'll chat more about this next week. For this week, that's it. We talked about how to eval models. Hopefully you guys build some better evals, share some better eval dashboards as you build them. Post screenshots, conversations always live on the Discord if you guys would like, or send us an email.
Awesome. Super fun. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Dex.
Yeah.